Hello, this is Lou from Flaming Divine Astrology, and this is the weekly moon report for the week of the 29th of June to the 5th of July 2025. So this week brings in quite a big shift as we move some of that, like next week Uranus will move signs, but it's beginning to get to that final point where it conjuncts with Venus. Venus moves sign this week, but we also start some of the retrogrades. So let's get into the report. So on Sunday, starting with Sunday is the week, a lovely Leo moon that we've had over the weekend, which has been nice and hot here in the UK, but it's also been sparking intentions. It's like very creative, just like filling us with our heart desires and just enjoying the weekend. So it's been quite a nice weekend with that. There was a few issues with Venus squared to the moon in the early hours of Sunday morning, both in fixed signs. So this suggests that like some sort of stubbornness could be the issue. There may be a need for it to be more flexible to find the solution. By Sunday morning, Mercury was opposes Pluto. So also both in fixed signs. This could suggest that someone is trying to control a situation by being bossy or even manipulative, coming against someone who is equally stubborn. With Mercury in Leo, this can be very charismatic and, like somebody who thinks like a true leader, encouraging people and leading by example. However, sometimes this has come across as very bossy, very controlling, and sort of like unbending, so like very set to their rules and how things are meant to be. Pluto in the opposition is also in a fixed sign in Aquarius, and this can be like suggesting that so there could be hidden motives behind someone's actions, something they're not saying, so it could be a secret also. And there could be some sort of like sneaky behaviour undermining the situation. The moon square Uranus around midday here in the UK, and so this brings about anything from wildfires, volcanic eruptions, significant solar flares, aviation issues, extreme weather events, so like extreme heat. At the moment we've got a bit of a heat wave, so there could be some shocks on this day somewhere in the world. The moon ingresses into Virgo at 12:43 in just after lunchtime here in the UK. So attention to detail, dealing with all paperwork and getting organised is like is the theme of the next few days. Also a busy few days for taking care of others and not forgetting to find time for self-care. As the moon moves through the early degrees of Virgo, it forms quincunx to both Pluto, but also to this Saturn and Neptune, sort of like forming a conjunction, so that it's forming quite a significant yod. So this can bring challenges, very challenging energy. It's quite uncomfortable sometimes when you have a yod, because it's almost like it's bringing up fears and doubts and sort of the inner critic and the inner issues. So it's kind of like psychological in that respect, and it can bring up where we need to rise above and act with compassion to overcome something, with moon being about caring and nurturing, but then also in Virgo is a sign of like coming into service and helping others, being quite virtuous. So yeah, that's something that is pointing us towards, and maybe a need for being a little bit more considerate or compassionate over the next few days. Okay, so on Monday in the early hours, the moon meets with Mars, and this could highlight concerns about a male person, an Aries person in your life, but it can also be about actions being taken. For some, this could suggest lying awake, feeling angry or annoyed about a situation. If this is the case, then it's best to just let it go and focus on yourself and just the things you have control over. It's the ideal time for like self-care, so just do something that is going to be sort of like because like with Mars it can be about self, so it's like things that please you, things that are going to make you feel better, sort of thing. So it's like be selfish. So Monday also starts the beginning of this pre-retrograde shadow of the next Mercury retrograde. Although Mercury doesn't actually go retrograde until the 18th of July, the pre-retrograde shadow begins on Monday. So you may notice the typical Mercury retrograde things like glitches in communication, communication starting to go awry, complications with transport and deliveries, deliveries not getting through, not turning up on time, just the usual things, like workmen not showing up or things not happening as they should, technology glitches, little things with like power outages and all sorts of things that happen as a joyful, typical Mercury retrograde. I always seem to get like temporary traffic lights right outside my house when there's a Mercury retrograde, and it stops me getting in and out my driveway, and it also causes havoc with trying to sleep, particularly when it's hot and there's like windows open, because there's then like cars constantly parked outside the house, usually with loud music on during the night. So that's just me. But yeah, it's just those typical Mercury retrograde things we might start noticing sort of creeping back in. So also in Mercury retrograde, it's time to like start taking your foot off the pedal, not you're like slowing things down, but going back over old things, going back over old contracts, paperwork, and just sorting things out, and not starting new things, but going back over the old to like bring completion and tidy up the loose ends. That kind of thing always works good in a Mercury retrograde. Okay, so Tuesday, it starts with more sort of positive aspects from. So on Sunday we had this square from Venus and Uranus and the moon, and so it would have caused possibly some arguments around money or love life and relationships, that kind of thing, or just some more difficult feelings around things like that. However, with the moon now in the mutable sign of Virgo, steps may be taken to resolve the drama from Sunday, as the moon now forms more positive aspects. It's like enshrined to Venus and Uranus, so this is more like trines can be about action taking when you're in an earth sign, and also with like Venus being a feminine planet as well, so it's usually about being more receptive. It can be about sort of like grounding, maybe a little apology or some sort of shocking gesture. Maybe somebody who you wouldn't expect to apologise could come with an apology, or a little bit of care and consideration. So there could be some sort of consideration and resolve on this day. This could suggest that there needs to be action taken around your love life, relationships, but not necessarily just loved ones, but also with finances on this day. There could be a bit of a shock with the finances at some point this week. The moon enters the sign of Libra at 22:16, so that's 10:16 in the evening here in the UK, so British summertime. A sign that is about balance and fairness and justice, finances, relationships, all those sorts of things. So they're likely to come to mind over the next few days. So that's Tuesday in a nutshell. We're sort of getting towards this whole sort of, like a building around sort of finances and relationships. And it seems to be the main theme of this week, very much so. Okay, so Wednesday is looking like a bit more of a challenging day. Maybe one of the more challenging days of the week. The moon opposing both Saturn and Neptune. So another day where there could be like governmental, political nonsense, a feeling of confusion, like a system that just isn't working anymore. The moon also trines Pluto, so this can bring up the past, but can also be about taking action to inspire the change and transformations that are needed, or discussions about transformation. On a personal level, this can be about spiritually reforming, changing the way we dream our life to be, and the limitations in place in our current life. So there can be sort of a feeling of wanting that change, both sort of like literally in life, but also in a sort of spiritual way as well.
through the morning, the moon squares Jupiter and sextiles Mercury. So this can bring, when the moon in Libra square to Jupiter, this can bring up just a lot. Sometimes if your partner is like being a bit needy and like in relationships, I'm thinking of it in that respect. It could be a sort of neediness. Financially, it could be just like working hard to try and earn more money, needing more money. But it generally just brings about a busy, really busy time, because like Jupiter is expansive. It's like adding more to the job list. It's like our partner is going, oh, can you just do this as well and just do that as well? And so it's just, there's likely to be a really busy day with the moon sextile to Mercury. This is about communication, errand running, potentially with people asking a lot of us. So be careful not to take on more than you can comfortably handle. The moon moves to the first quarter lunar phase. That is when the moon is half lit up in the sky. It appears as a half moon. This starts at 8:30 British summer time, so here in the UK. When the moon is squaring the sun, and this can bring a bit more of a challenging energy. So it's like things not quite going to plan, or it just feels like there's setbacks in, like in our goals, the intentions we set at the new moon. We've now got to a point where we're trying to make it happen, but things aren't quite going as easily as we'd hoped, or there's a few little hiccups or glitches, and things just take a little bit hard. Like it's just a bit more difficult to sort of achieve what we're trying to set out to achieve. So yeah, it can make it a little bit more tricky. So I mean, it's just a phase. It only lasts a few days, like maybe sort of 2-3 days. So yeah, it's it could just be like a little bit of a setback in the next couple of days. So we get to Thursday, and there's really not a lot of exact astrological aspects and things happening on this day. The moon is void, of course, throughout the entire day. So that gives a sense of sort of freedom, but also sometimes a wild rebellion. We may find that we feel a bit unfocused on tasks. When there's like the things which are sort of like pressing, the jobs we have to do when we're at work, and it's kind of almost like we might just be like so unfocused that we just start doing something completely different. Sometimes when void moons happen, any hard work we do on that day or anything we're trying to achieve, it just sort of unravels and amounts to nothing. It's like, like the last piece of the jigsaw's missing type thing. It just doesn't really complete. So we might find ourselves in a bit of a state of flux, sidetracked, doing something completely different from the norm. The moon is still in Libra, so we could find partners acting a bit peculiar. This can be about finances and justice and freedom, to not follow the rules. So be careful, like not to overspend as well. Be tempted to like overspend or break rules. So yeah, an interesting day Thursday with not much happening. And so we make it on to Friday the 4th of July. So happy Independence Day to anyone in America. This is quite a big one, Friday, to be honest. Probably the main energy of this whole week, because obviously astrology builds over a few days and then it sort of fades over a few days. So this is really the main energy of the whole week. There is a chance we might wake up in the morning with old wounds resurfacing to heal, as the moon directly opposes Chiron in the early hours. Obviously that can bring up things in the night whilst we're resting. Sometimes that's the time when things sort of like trigger us and we remember back to the past or wounds or things like that. By 10:32 a.m. here in the UK, the moon moves into the sign of Scorpio, where feelings become deep and thoughts and emotions could become a bit negative. The moon obviously being in fall in this position. So just be careful to keep grounded, and shift any negativity. Sometimes it's so easy to sort of like fall into it and then sort of express it in a really in a sort of like fiery way, because Scorpio, you have to remember, is ruled by both Pluto and Mars. Mars being quite active, quite what's the word? Impulsive. So kind of like the emotions could just be like brought up quite impulsively. This day brings a major shift to relationships or finances, but also how we romanticize and idealize things or people. Because at 142 here in the UK, Venus meets with Uranus exactly. I mean, this, like I say, will have been building up throughout the week. Really shocking things around our finances, our relationships, not just romantic ones, but it can bring up, really unexpected things as well. But it starts a new cycle between Venus and Uranus. And obviously the cycle will last sort of approximately a year, a little bit less maybe, because Venus won't be going retrograde in the next year. So yeah. And this could bring like a sudden realization regarding a relationship. So suddenly realizing that, I don't know, say for example, somebody who you've been friends with for years, and then suddenly realizing you have feelings, or vice versa. If you've been in a relationship for a while, you might be thinking, God, why am I still sticking around with this? Or just different realizations, whatever the realization is in terms of, friendships. It can be people you work with. Just sudden shocks about people. Something you didn't know, like maybe highlighted about that person. You might be, oh, I never knew that about you, sort of thing. But it can also be in regards to money matters, certain shocks, financial shocks. This takes place in the last critical degree of Taurus as well. So Taurus can also be about money and romances as well. So yeah, it highlights that a bit more. But it's also an earth sign. So then we have to also remember that this can be around Mother Earth, beauty. It can be about... So, I mean, I imagine on that evening we could have like or the evening before, we could have a really, really, really beautiful sunsets, things happening in the sky. Like the other night when I was driving home, there was like 2 double rainbows and just the most beautiful sunset all at the same time, and it was just like, wow. With Uranus being a sky god, Venus being about beauty. So I mean, we can probably expect some of that over the course of this week. But it can also bring like really extreme, shocking, unexpected things with weather, seismic activities, volcanic activity. It can be about aviation, space travel, all those sorts of things as well. So, I mean, it can bring up a lot of things. If anyone's planning to have a beauty treatment on this day, there is a chance that it could have very unexpected results. I mean, that can be sometimes a good thing, but sometimes a bad thing. But it will probably not go quite as expected. So later in the afternoon, Venus then changes sign from her home sign into Taurus. And this is like a more sociable sign. She can get quite flirtatious. It's about communication. When you talk in a sort of Venusian kind of way, it can be quite flirtatious. It's quite poetic sometimes as well, I guess. Speaking in a beautiful way. By later in the afternoon, there could be something a little bit triggering, as the moon in Scorpio squares the sign's ruler, Pluto. This could bring up the past, or a feeling that change is sort of difficult to accept. With Pluto in the mix, it can be quite toxic energy, it can be quite manipulative, something very deep as well. So it's like a a depth to it, an intensity, intense feelings could be bubbling up over something. And it can be like, it can affect us on like a sort of psychological level, sort of like bring up our shadow side where we might be feeling sort of like jealous, or like it could be triggering us in some way. It could be about mirroring and stuff like that. The night gets a little bit better as a trine forms between the moon and Jupiter. So this brings a bit of more positive energy, a bit more upbeat energy. However, this is like a water trine. So this could see emotions splurging out, like a lot of emotions, which could make us feel better sharing a problem and expressing how we feel. However, Neptune goes retrograde at 10:32 in the evening, so 22:32 BST. So there is a chance that this could come back to haunt us later on. If we do it like sort of like overly express our emotions and whatever's triggering us at that point, it could come back over the next few months. But when Neptune goes retrograde, so it brings like there's sort of disillusionment about the things that we've been experiencing in our reality, but sometimes it can make us go inward in a more sort of spiritual way, sort of soul-seeking way. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad retrograde. There are other planets which I would consider probably worse, like the Saturn retrograde, which is to come later in July. But yeah, be careful of any drunken sort of texting the ex, that kind of thing, with all this sort of like Venus energy and stuff going on, or telling a friend exactly what you think of them, anything like that, as it could have a long-lasting effect, as Neptune is retrograde until the 10th of December. So all in all, the 4th of July could go with a bit of an unexpected bang. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be one of those days which kind of brings about quite a big shift in energy, and brings about quite a big change over the like coming months. Definitely sort of like a spiritual depth. It's almost like suddenly meeting a soulmate type day. That sort of energy. It's very strange. Saturday, we make it to the end of the week and the weekend starts again. The moon squares Mercury, so and it's like the moon like in water, Scorpio, Mercury's in Leo, fire. They're both in fixed signs, so there's like fire and water kind of blows each other out. It's not very good, is it? And then there's this whole fixed stubbornness about it. It does feel a bit like there could be a bit of an argument on that day, or sort of like somebody angrily letting off steam, just sort of like steam, doesn't it? Water and fire. Stubbornness around an idea, where you're absolutely set on an idea and doing something particular, but somebody's like dead set against it. It can be quite emotionally needy, bossy or controlling in a way that could cause an argument. By 7:20 in the morning BST, so here in the UK, the moon sextiles Mars. This is a good day for taking care of yourself, getting some space, taking time in nature to heal, potentially for some a day of taking care of others and like those loved ones and stuff. Some nurturing is definitely needed. By 2:30 in the afternoon, the moon trines the sun. Yay, that's better energy, definitely. Things start to become a bit easier at that point as well. So any challenges faced because of the sort of first quarter phase of the moon, we're now moving towards the bit where it becomes a little bit easier as we approach the gibbous. We don't quite get there until Sunday, but that like nice waxing gibbous moon is just coming up, so it brings about this more positive energy again. So particularly great if you're taking care of yourself, putting yourself first in order to then help others. And it's all about nurture on Saturday, definitely. So yeah, that's the week in a nutshell. It kind of is a bit like a new revelation in money and finances, and how people are sort of putting all their energy into just constantly wanting to make money when that's not really the be all and end all. Loved ones and families and relationships are kind of more important, but then there's also this kind of new shift in relationships and what they're all about, whether they should be kind of like codependency. That's going to be a thing of the past. I think after this week, people are going to be realizing that actually you can be quite happy and loved up, and just being here, part of the universe, feeling the great energies around us. What we have to also remember is, was Venus and Uranus are coming together at this last point of Taurus, but then also moving into Gemini, as Venus does this week and Uranus moves next week. They are very much in line with the Pleiades, and so that whole Pleiadian energy of love, and there being more love, higher love, sort of this higher feeling of love surrounding us, like just the universe itself is just love, isn't it? So we don't really need to be needy of relationships or other people. I think it's going to change the whole paradigms and things around relationships. I mean, when you think back, it was only probably like maybe like a few decades ago where people were supposed to get married and have children and do all that sort of stuff. Now it's like you kind of have a freedom to choose. Marriage is not really a thing anymore. It was kind of a societal reform, wasn't it? It's kind of religious based as well. I think that's all changed. There's a lot more freedom around that. And I think I feel quite lucky at the time that I living in this era, where as a woman, I'm not, I don't have to be tied to a man or a particular person. I think that makes people quite vulnerable when you have to be like forced into a situation where you're, like bond together and that's it for life. So yeah, I think that's all a thing of the past. And I think this week really sort of cements that. It brings the change, because I mean there's still a lot of people that seem to think who they're dating or relationships or massive engagement rings and all that sort of stuff is really a thing, and it's just not. Okay, so thank you for listening. That's this week in a nutshell, really, the astrology of the week from the 29th of June to the 5th of July. Please leave in comments how it's shaping up for you, particularly around the sort of 4th of July. But yeah, also just a few things. I'm considering things on this channel. Is it better if there's little bit, like last week I did a little video of me in the corner box. Would you like some tarot cards for each day as well? So yeah, just what would you like adding or taking away? Do you want it shorter, longer? All that sort of stuff. Thank you. Bye.